Did you hear about that actress from Legally Blonde that got stabbed overnight?
No.
It's her name, Reese.
Oh, Witherspoon.
No, with a knife it was, but yeah.
Jesus Christ. Fucking hell. Started the weekend poorly. Good evening, punters, and welcome to another episode of The Tripod, where we break down every NRL game every week from a betting perspective. Coming off a good round last week, 14-4 on best bets. That's not going to happen every week, but it gives us a bit of a buffer, and we do like a few sides this week. Jacob, you're looking forward to round 5.
Of course, yeah, it was another exciting round. We are just like a footy team. We get about a day to bask in the glory of a 14-4 round, and then we need to get back to work. We can't be complacent, because if we dish up a 4-8 round, then nobody's going to be singing our praises. But it does remind you, in round 3, we went 6-6. And we talked about how, of course, you're never happy when you have a marginal losing round.
Sure.
But if you can minimize the rounds where things don't go your way, minimize your losses, there will be those rounds where it goes mostly your way, like we did in round 4. And that's where you can really cash in.
And that's when it comes down to where we put in the work and find the best lines, because sometimes those half points do matter. Let's kick off round 5. It starts on Thursday night with the Sea Eagles up against the Broncos. The Sea Eagles are laying 12.5 points, and the total is 40.5. I'd be super interested to know what this line was at the start of the season, or at the resumption of the season, because I definitely do not think it'd be 12.5 points. Look, Manly are a legit team. They're going to be there come finals time. They're probably one of the 6 or 7 teams that have a chance of winning the comp. And the Broncos are struggling at the moment. As we said, not fully fit. But look, 12.5 points is a lot, and I'm here to tell you that it's not the best spot to take Manly here. They're in a possible sandwich spot here. It's a really tough loss, a bit of a heartbreaking loss where they got robbed last week against the Eels. Now you have to play the Broncos, who are pretty shit, and you have to look forward, or a look-ahead spot, to the Raiders next week. So I can see Manly possibly coming out a little bit flat in this one. In terms of the Broncos, I actually like them in the first half in this one. I like the changes that they've made. Obviously, Oates into the forwards, but he's going to get a little bit tired, but that's not going to happen until the second half. And I like starting off Ngawi. I like starting Lodge. So I think you're trotting out your strongest team that you possibly can in the first half. And although the Broncos might tie a second half, I like their chances to hang with Manly, at least for 40 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely think the mix that the Broncos are going to be lining up this week is more positive. Like you say, Corey Oates to the back row, I like it. You never would have thought to do that with the amount of talented forwards they had, but with so many guys out, why not? Coates has a lot of raps on him. I'm sure he can hold down a wing. Teo, like, again, is he going to be fighting fit straight away? We're not sure, but I'm sure he will just add a bit of experience. The last game he played was a premiership win for the Rabbitohs, and this guy's played lots of rep footy, so it's experience, and that's what they were lacking last week. And as you say, the turnaround, they've had the 7 days, and it actually isn't that hard to pick yourself up off the canvas when you have hope, and there's still a lot of hope in this Brisbane team and still a lot of belief, whereas Manly have got a 5-day turnaround and a game that will be hard to shake off, and they're going to need to forget about that Eels loss, but it won't necessarily be easy. I also think there could be points in this one. Manly wasted a lot of chances against the Eels, and that's partly because the Eels are a pretty fierce defensive unit. And the Broncos have just had historically low amounts of possession the last 2 weeks, so if they can get the ball, they actually could put on a couple of points. But I'm with you. First half, I think we're just getting a little bit too many points with Brisbane, aside that everyone's going to ride off after a 59-0 loss.
Yeah, and most punters will. We're not. We've just got the one best bet for now on the game. We are taking the Broncos plus 6.5 points in the first half. You'll find that one on Lads and on Neds at $1.88. Let's move on to the early Friday game. We've got the Warriors up against the Cowboys. The Warriors are plus 6 points on the line, and the total sitting at 38.5 points. This one's a funny one. It's kind of two teams that almost I want to bet against, just for the moment anyway. The Warriors, as we know, we said it last week, the forwards just really struggle, and especially when you're missing your 2 wingers that gets you set started, they really do struggle. And, once again, Warriors, one of those confidence teams that we thought, and, they donut the Dragons round 1 and then lay an egg, in round 4, round 3, and then round 4, lay an egg themselves. So I do wonder what they're going to come out with in this one. In terms of the Cowboys, the big question mark, obviously, is Taumalolo here. And at the moment, there's various reports floating around. But, in our opinion, it's probably around 50-50, I guess. Jacob, would you say? Obviously, if he plays in this one, it's a huge boost for the Cowboys, and they'll just run all over that Warriors forward pack. So I do have my question marks about the Cowboys still. I still don't know if they're good necessarily. I mean, I know, they struggled last week without Tamalolo. They get him back this week, but in saying that, they still have played 3 of their 4 games in Townsville. This one's the first one away since the resumption of the NRL. So I have my question marks about the Cowboys, but still think that given the Warriors and their health, the Cows should be too good in this one.
And the question marks are fair. And of course, we've got to remember Michael Morgan was either an injury or had to get some minor surgery done in the break, and he's still a few weeks away. Asiata got injured last week as well. But let's start with Tamalolo now. I'll start by saying I think they would be crazy to play him. He's got bone bruising, couldn't play last week. And why do I say that? I know he's their most important player by far, and this team goes through the season on his back. Because if you can't beat the Warriors without Tamalolo, then what's the point? I really believe that they should challenge their team. They should say, we have to be able to win this game without Tamalolo. We need him fresh for this team to do anything. And I would assume a good season for the Cowboys is to make the 8, if not to get a finals win in terms of what they believe they should do. There's just no way they're going to do that unless it's off the back of Tamalolo playing great footy for the next 3 or 4 months. So why rush him back? If you need him to win this game, you won't be in the finals. In saying that, it is 50-50, and I do think they should be too good. You mentioned Fusatu and Mamalo are glaring omissions by the Warriors. There's a couple of forwards playing all right. Tohu Harris is doing well. I like Eli Katoa, but still, the Cowboys seem to have a stronger pack, better halves and better outside backs, honestly. And a lot of things went wrong for them last week. They lost, obviously, no Tamalolo. They lost Hess the day before the game. Mitchell Dunn and Asiata injured in the first 20. And they played against the Sharks team that we all sat here and told you were going to have their performance of the year. So I'm not going to write the Cowboys off for that one. I think they're going to win this game whether JT plays or not. But by getting a couple of plays on the Cows now, we at least lock in a good number if JT plays. And if he doesn't, we can live with these ones.
Yep, and just the one best bet for now, we are laying the 5.5 points with the Cowboys. You'll find that one at $1.83 in the sports bet other markets section. Make sure you look in there because it'll be a few points better, a few cents better than the regular line. Let's move on to the Friday night one. This should be a cracker. The Eels up against the Panthers. The Eels are 6-point favourites with a total of 35.5 points. Fairly low total given that I looked at the weather and it looks like it should be fine for this one. But obviously 2 teams that are gunning for a top 4 spot. Look, in terms of the Eels, they could not have looked better pretty much all season through the first 4 rounds. I think that you get a little bit of value on the Panthers here, and the fact that the Eels did win last week when they could have easily lost on that bogus forward pass call at the end. I think it's a rough spot for them, to be fair. I know they're a legit team, but coming off a pretty, emotional win against Manly, now you have to play the Panthers, and then you have a look ahead to the Roosters, who are, arguably their biggest competition this year. So I could see a possibility of the Eels coming out a little bit slow and a little bit of a sandwich spot here. In terms of the Panthers, I think they're coming in with a lot of confidence here. I said, they'd be good to go 1-1 over the first 2 weeks without Nathan Cleary. They go 1 win, 1 draw. I think they're going to gain a lot of confidence from that. You get Cleary back, and I think not only does he add something in terms of the in-game playing, but also with his goal kicking. I mean, last week the Panthers went 3 of 5 conversions. I think Cleary, adds a couple of points there as well. So in saying all that, I just think that, the converted try is probably a little bit too high here, and I would be inclined to lean towards the Panthers.
Yep, and I'll just give some general advice. The line's right about 6. If you like the Eels, shop around and lay -5.5. If you like the Panthers, look around and try and get +6.5. Yep. Especially when there's a fair chance that the exact margin of victory could be 6. Obviously, a very common winning margin. And I would be on the other side of it. And we've got a side bet we've agreed to take it at a -6, but I'll take the Eels. And my reason, yes, Cleary back is a big addition. I do wonder, with the way that they had to prepare during lockdown, knowing he got suspended towards the second half of lockdown, I feel like they had to play Burton and Luai in the halves in all their preparation and over the last 2 weeks because they knew those 2 games were really important. So I just wonder, is it going to be a seamless transition bringing Cleary back in there? Not necessarily. Also, don't forget Nathan Brown added to this Eels team. He's like the spiritual leader of that forward pack. And on the forwards, I love the battles here. I really love both packs, and I feel they've got such a great mix of power, enforcers, mobility, and skill. So that battle will be awesome. What it comes down to for me, I really believe 2020, this Eels team takes every game seriously. You said that they got a bit of a lucky win last week, but I think that can help a squad because they treat it like a loss. So you get zero complacency by the Eels. Brad Arthur will say, you blokes were up 18-2, and if it's not for a wrong call, you lose that game. You need to be better again. They come in better, whereas Penrith is a young team off a 26-0 win. Yes, they could be confident, but could they also be overconfident? So I'm expecting an entertaining game, and I do think that Parramatta should be too good in this one.
Next up, we get to the Rabbitohs up against the Titans. The Rabbitohs are 11.5-point favourites. 44.5 points is the total. Now, this is one of the rare occasions where I actually like the big favourite. And it's rare that we kind of lay double-digit points. It's very, very rare. But in this case, I think there's too much to like about this Rabbitohs side. You get back Cody Walker and James Roberts. And look, with the new rules, I know, who knows how good they're going to come out and start. But I think with these new rules, it's perfect for a player like Cody Walker, and also perfect for a player like James Roberts. And this is kitchen sink time for the Souths. I know that, we kind of said coming in, 1-2 last week, this is a big game for Souths, but, at the same time, you're playing the Storm, and you played the Roosters the week before, and now you're 1-3. You absolutely have to just, lay it all on the line in this game against the Titans. I think that the Rabbits haven't been that bad in their first couple of games. I think they're coming in a little bit underrated here after playing arguably the two best teams in the comp. But I think, once again, Cody Walker will add so much in attack for them. And look, the Titans, great win last week for the Titans. They fucked us over. I won't dwell on that too much. But look, a big win like that, a big emotional win for a bad team like the Titans, it can go one of two ways. You either galvanizes the team, adds some confidence to them, and they come out real confident in this one, or I think this is the more likely scenario when you get a team that knows they have no chance of making the 8. I think you're more chance of getting a letdown spot after a big win like that. Whereas the good teams, you get a big win like that, they usually come out a little bit too more confident. So look, I'm happy to lay the double digits here with the Rabbitohs. I think they could absolutely blow the Titans off the park.
Yeah, you've got to say positive signs for Holbrook there, and you've got to give credit to the Titans, and we did. And it was a very rare situation where we bet against an 0-3 team. We don't usually do that, but we really didn't give them much chance against Tigers, and they proved us wrong, and they killed 3 very nice multis, the only losing leg.
Yep.
But you have to also acknowledge that the Tigers were very poor, and the Tigers were very disappointing in giving them that win, and by all means, it does not prove that the Titans have flipped the script and that now they're to be taken seriously. You look at the Rabbitohs, and the funny thing with Cody Walker and James Roberts coming back into this team, it really is in the nick of time. Had they been in this team for the last 2 weeks, I reckon they still would have lost to the Roosters and the Storm.
Probably.
So now it's like you get to bring these two guys in, and it's a real kind of confidence and energy injection into this team, which I still believe will make the finals. And this is the kind of game that absolutely can't muck around with. And it might seem like with the old line that we always say, we never lay over double digits in the NRL, we never lay women, but there's rare exceptions.
Yep.
And I've had a child this year, and we're going to lay minus 10.5.
Anything can happen. I should mention as well that when a big underdog wins, like the Titans last week, and then they come in again as double-digit underdogs, that is a trend that is not very healthy for the dog. We've got 4 best bets on the Rabbits here. We're taking the Rabbitohs laying 5.5 points in the second half. That's $1.82 on Ladbrokes and Neds. We're taking the Titans not to win a half. That's $1.85 on Bet365. We take the Rabbitohs to score over 4.5 tries. $1.80 on Ladbrokes and on Neds. And we're going to take the Rabbitohs laying 10.5 points. That one's $1.91. You'll find that one in Bet Easy under the title Main Markets. If you click that one, you should find that bet for a cent more. Let's move on to the next one.
It's about 5 cents more.
Oh, is it? Yeah, okay.
6 cents,
or
yeah.
1 cent more than the next best price. Yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, let's move on to, this one should be a good one. The Knights up against the Storm. The Knights are plus 3.5 points. The total is 39.5. Look, huge win for the Knights last week, and that was probably the best game that I've seen them play in a long time. Ponga was absolutely awesome. But look, okay, I don't need to dwell too much. We all know that the Raiders had a terrible game, to be fair, for their standards, and we know that the Knights played better than probably they normally do. But I rewatched the game today, and I really noticed that the Raiders made a ton of defensive errors when the Knights were going out wide. The Raiders made a number of defensive errors, coming in early, making mistakes defensively. I think that's the Storm's strength. The Storm defense knows how to slide like that, so I think that the Knights will not have as much success as they did last week against the Raiders, against the Storm this week, because I think the Storm will be able to weather that. And the Storm are getting better every week, I think, and they're going to. I think it's going to take them a little while to get used to those new rules, not being able to lay in the ruck as much. And I think that Craig Bellamy will also have some words for him. It wasn't the most impressive performance by the Storm last week, so I think they can improve on that one. But at the end of the day, I've got a Storm team that I think is a top 2 team in the comp, up against a Knights team that's probably coming in a little bit overrated by most average punters, off one of the best games that I've seen them play in a while. And I'll just go back to it. Look, the Knights, a team is not as good as their best performance. And if the Knights can reproduce what they did last week, then yeah, sure, they're a shot. But I think we're going to see a lesser Knights team this week.
Yeah, the Knights have been fantastic since the lockdown win, that guts draw comeback. Obviously in round 3, and then to beat the team that made the grand final and comprehensively flog them on Sunday afternoon. But again, kind of like we're going to say the Titans got an upset win, but the Tigers were very poor.
Right.
You have to acknowledge the Raiders were massively off their game as well.
Yes.
So just keep that in mind with the Knights. So I don't think the Storm will give them anything nearly as easily. Now, Fitzgibbon could come back into this Knights team. There's lots to love. I've talked about Mitch Barnett is going to join this team next month as well. But for now, I still think the Storm has a stronger forward pack. Now, an interesting question mark in this game is who is the halfback for the Storm? Jerome Hughes got injured last week. He actually hasn't been in great form, so it's a very interesting time for Bellamy. What direction does he go? There's rumours Cam Smith will play pivot. Obviously, Riley Jacks is named there. They've talked about Cooper Johns. Maddie's son is training there, as is Nico Hines from the Sunny Coast Falcons. So whichever direction they go, I trust Bellyache will get it right. I trust him to know his personnel and to pick a player that will do a job there. And this is the kind of game where home crowd would have been a big advantage to the Knights. You just know they would have been raucous. They have injected so much energy. We've talked about the culture change that has been ignited, and Kalen Ponga up there as close to the best players in the competition and maybe the most exciting. So it's a shame for them that they don't get to play this in front of a home crowd, even though the news came out this week that home crowds probably will play a part later down the road. This would have been a game that could have used it. I see it as a finals intensity type of game, and I just think the Storm team is built to win a game like that.
Yes, we've got 3 best bets on this one. We are taking the Storm laying 3.5 points for the game. That one's $1.91 on BetEasy. We're taking the Storm laying 1.5 points in the second half. That's $1.88 also on BetEasy. And we're going to take the Storm to score over 3.5 tries. You'll find that one on Ladbrokes and on Neds. And I'm sorry, I have not got the price on there. I believe that one was $1.88, but I'll figure that out and I'll post that in the app after we are done.
I'll double check that one. It may have only been $1.80, but I'll shout it
anyway. Out. Next up, the Tigers are hosting the Raiders. It's not often you can say hosting in this one, but it is at the Tigers' home ground. The Tigers are plus 8.5 points in this one. The total sitting at 37.5. Now, the Tigers, the funny thing is here, I guess the only side you can play is the Tigers. But the reason that we kind of liked the Tigers early in the season was the amount of continuity they had within their team. They hadn't made many changes in the off-season or during the break to the lineup. But they've made a raft of changes in this one. And most notably, Benji Marshall being dropped and Josh Reynolds coming in at 6, which, I guess they know something we don't. I actually think that this is not a long-term thing for the Tigers. I think they'll get Benji back in there. I think it's just kind of a statement and hoping that Benji comes back even hungrier. I think he'll be back there in no time. So I expect a good effort out of this Tigers team after giving that one away last week. They just weren't good enough. So we're getting a little bit of extra value there on the Tigers because they, couldn't finish the job last week. In terms of the Raiders, look, they just had a bad game last week, and, I don't expect them to play like that this week. Again, I expect them to be a bit improved. But at the same time, you've got to remember the NRL is the closest comp in the, one of the closest comps in the world. The Tigers are, an average team. I know this Raiders side are contenders, but this is a Tigers side that's playing at home. I know no crowds, and, the line's creeping up towards double digits. You just have to take them.
Well, you have to take them, but we're not taking the Tigers because
what have we done? What do we do?
We took the unders in the end, which
Oh,
I
we
guess
did.
means we're thinking towards a close game. And I should say, by the way, in the previous game, we've got Storm over 3.5 tries. That was the
Yes.
one you
What was
didn't
the
put a price
price?
on. It's actually $1.90.
Oh, there you go.
So
All right.
that's on Ladbrokes
I'll make
and
sure
Neds.
I write that
So
one down.
let's talk about Tigers Raiders. These are two teams that were both roughly $1.30 to win on Sunday and both lost. So they're both out of favour with the punters. I'm sure they both sunk a lot of multis. The Raiders didn't sink any of ours because we kind of saw it coming. But this is why you listen to the pod. Because if you listen to any other mainstream media a week ago, what were they saying? Raiders, they're going to go one step further. George Williams is the missing piece. They don't even need Bateman. This team is the favourite to win the premiership. And what did we say? Which is pretty bold a week ago. The Raiders are overrated. And now, they're back down to earth and they were totally outclassed. And as Ricky Stewart put it, it was men against boys. But could that be the wake-up call? To put this game simply, I don't think the Tigers are as good as the Knights.
No.
And
no.
I know that the Raiders will be better this week than they were last week. So I don't really see why Tigers plus 8.5 is a great bet. Look at that raft of changes that Madge has made. Obviously pissed off with the result.
Yes.
The most interesting changes, obviously Reynolds in and no utility. Maybe Cheekham off the bench can play centres and Moses and Bai can cover the spine. But to me, it's just more about the fact that the Raiders should be too good, but we wouldn't lay the points against a Tigers team that is also off an embarrassing loss.
Totally agree. The Tigers would be the only side, but we have, like Jacob said, we've taken an under in this one, and we have taken under 18.5 points in the first half. You'll find that one at $1.85 on both Ladbrokes and on Neds.
And so I should justify why we like unders. The Raiders gave up, 4 tries to the Knights in the first 45 minutes last week. The Tigers gave up 12 points to the Titans first half. Both these teams want to have defensive identities. Both these teams will have it drummed into them. You've got to earn the right to play some footy in this game. So I could see a more of a conservative ball control and a disciplined defensive effort. And 18.5 is a key number to get in the first half.
Yes, definitely. Let's move on to the Bulldogs up against the Roosters at Bankwest Stadium. The Bulldogs are 16.5 point underdogs and the total is 44.5 points. Look, the Roosters are probably going to win this game, and this is not, a betting podcast where we're telling you who's going to win, because the Roosters probably do win this one, but I think there are reasons to like the points with the underdog here. I mean, the Bulldogs, they get the win, they get the duck off their back on Monday, and I think they will bring, have a little bit of confidence from that win. In terms of the Roosters, I know they've just been, obviously a juggernaut, and you get back Teddy for this week, but look, whenever I see a huge line, I always look towards the dog, and I think it is a kind of an awkward spot for the Roosters. You win last week, and now you have to turn around and play, a fairly crappy team with a big line that you might, not take as seriously, and then you have to play the Eels next week in a bit of a look ahead. So I think that the Roosters, might not start awesome in this game, and they might not want to win by fucking 59 points again. So I can see the Dogs hanging around for a little bit in this one.
Yeah, it is a very tough one. We have power ratings to give a rough sense of what the line should be, and we've got these teams, poles apart, roughly 15 points apart. And the truth is, the Roosters can often name their score when they're in control of a game. And if the Roosters wanted to win this game by 20 plus, and they've really set their mind to it, we're not saying that they couldn't. But it is not always their number one concern. You've got no guarantee that, every star player in the Roosters is going to play. They will pick their spots through the year to let guys have a rest. And sometimes they will come into a game putting an emphasis on different things like completed sets or defense rather than running up a score. And for the Dogs, I was impressed. I know, albeit it was against the Dragons, but I just felt they came in, they played tough, they played physical, they looked reasonably structured with their sets, moving the ball up the field. Thought Kieran Foran added something there. And of course the Roosters class should prevail in this game, but what tipped us over the line was to be able to get 18.5 points. That's just enough points to, present line value for us, so we've got to take it.
And like Jacob said, we've just got the one best bet on the game. It is the Dogs plus 18.5 points. I think it's only on one site, and that's on Unibet. It is $1.82. Try and get that if you can. I know it's 17.5 on a bunch of other sites. Let's get to the last game of the round on Sunday night. It's the Dragons up against the Sharkies. The Dragons are 6.5 point dogs, and the total is 39.5. I won't get into the Dragons stuff too much, but look, what I have heard is promising. McGregor's going to stay, and I think the players are, rallying around him, and I think that they're going to come out with a point to prove. It's on them now, the players, to actually stand up and put in a decent performance here. But look, I can't call myself a bettor if I don't take the Dragons here. It's just one of those perfect storms where no average punter is going to be betting on the Dragons. Everyone is heaping shit on them all week long. They've got until Sunday for this game, and that's just what you want to do as a punter. You want to bet on the ugly ducklings, and you cannot get a duckling uglier than the Dragons at the moment. Bottom of the ladder, 0-4, off a terrible, terrible performance in the last game of the round. So, although the Sharks, we loved them last week in a kitchen sink spot that we thought for them, although the Sharks are still better than this Dragons team, I do expect a better performance out of the Dragons, and we are getting line value just because they've just been so terrible. But I do expect them to be able to keep this one close. And look, don't call me crazy, but I would not be surprised if the Dragons win this one outright.
Yeah, all the talk is about Mary McGregor, obviously, but this really is not about Mary. At some point, it's about individual pride for the players. They still have 16 more rounds to get through, and I know that the season, in a way, is lost because Mary won't be there long term. They're really not going to make the 8. But you can't give up for 15 more weeks, and I think it's a great spot in that they've been absolutely panned. Once again, they're the final round of the match, so they've got the longest amount of time to ponder their lives, and they play their biggest rival. So it is a reason to get up for the game. And I think the Sharks are probably overrated because we talked about everything went wrong for the Cowboys last week, and last week was the kitchen sink game for the Sharks to get their first win of 2020. So it's hard when you throw an all-in effort to then actually repeat that. I know that, if you're looking at the personnel, you're going to say Dragons have lost Tarek Sims, which is a big loss, whereas the Sharkies get to add back in Fafita and Townsend. But Fafita's knee, I really would not expect him to be the same player he has been in years gone by. Townsend comes in off a hammy injury. We know Johnson is never 100% in any game to get through 80 minutes. Moylan to fullback is a gamble. And everything went right for them last week. Mulatalo's out as well. Brayley is green. So I just really could see the Dragons. Let's not forget, they nearly had Penrith beaten in round 2 this year, played the Tigers to the wire in round 1. They have the ability to be competitive. We're getting extra line value because of how appalling they've been the last 2 weeks. But I think they can get it together and make it a close game.
And we've got 3 best bets on the Dragons for now. You might call us crazy. We are taking the Dragons plus 6.5 points. That one is $1.90 on Ladbrokes and Neds. We're taking the Dragons plus 1.5 tries. That's $1.80 on Bet365. People always ask where to find that. It's under the score tab. And we're also going to take the Sharkies to not score 3 unanswered tries. That one is $2 on Bet365. And that is going to do it for the week, guys. That was the round 5 preview. If you missed any of those, obviously you can rewatch it, or you can hop into the Tripod app, and we'll be posting all of those bets in there as well. And obviously we will have the rest of our best bets released on Friday or throughout the weekend if we find any more value. But look, thanks again for tuning in, guys, and we will catch you Sunday night for a recap of what is hopefully another winning round. Good luck on the punt.
Lego.